Rebecca, your radar commission has a very specific concept and premise, which is leylines. Can we start off by talking about how you came across this, why it inspires you, and how you translate it into the music?
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that I've always been really interested in, and I think we ended up having a conversation about it and just thought it'd be really interesting subject matter to explore.
Generally speaking, when we think of ley lines, we think of some kind of connection between a part of the land and prehistory, or going right back in time, maybe something a bit mystical. And certainly in that first piece, Primordial Breath, there's that sense of something which is very, very deeply rooted, something which goes way back in time. Did you try and capture the energy of something primal that could go into the music?
Yeah. I mean, the title for Primordial Breath, for me, it came from a conversation that I had with a lady called Jude Caravan, she lives in Avebury and is a sort of specialist in this, that whole field. And one of the things that we talked about was the Big Bang, and her sort of understanding of it, is it not being, a kind of huge explosion, but this kind of gentle hum that came first before everything. So that was really the inspiration for that piece.
Well, the Big Bang, it doesn't come much earlier than that. Something which is in our past, something which we can't escape. Permeates all of history. Nick, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I found really fascinating about sort of researching these ideas and looking into them is seeing how ideas morph over time, how everyone kind of puts their own spin on things and has their own interpretation. But also, a lot of this stuff, especially looking back into prehistory, there is no actual definitive answer, and no one really knows. People can offer opinions and interpretations, and they can base it on various bits of archaeological evidence. But at the end of the day, no one can definitively say these objects were placed in this alignment for this reason. It's all very murky and hazy, which I find quite fascinating.
Did you write together, or did one person start and the other responded? How did the composition process actually unfold?
So, I mean, it all started, didn't it, when we both took a trip to Avebury together, and there's a wonderful walk that you can do around all the sites. So we started at the Henge and then made our way down to the Sanctuary and then up to the Long Barrow and then back to the Henge where it began. And as we walked, Nick took his microphone and we recorded samples of the sounds that we were hearing on this walk. And that was really the beginning of the writing process, I would say.
Musicians going a long way back in time have been inspired by nature, by the sound of the sea, the wind, the land, etc., bird song. Tell me a little bit, Nick, about your connection and the inspiration that you draw from those sounds and how it filters into the music.
Yeah, I guess there's two elements to the sounds. There's the kind of, as you mentioned, the kind of atmospheric sounds like the wind, bird song. We got quite a lot of that, which was really nice. And then there's also, I also went into it with the idea to get some more percussive elements, to try and create some beats. I was definitely inspired by someone like Matthew Herbert, building beats out of different sounds that you might not expect, different to your normal kind of drum sounds that you hear all the time.
All of the pieces have these very evocative moods, these strong moods. Tell me, is there a specific story behind the second piece, The Sanctuary?
I mean, we both spent quite a lot of time there on that day. We sampled, I mean, it's an incredible place. It's there's these sort of rock formations in a circle which mark out a sort of an ancient structure that was there once there. So we were actually sampling the sounds of those rocks. So all the beats that you hear are the sounds of us, tapping the rocks or hitting them with things and just sampling them, basically. It did feel like, for me, I felt like that was it's a very special place, and it felt very calm, actually. It felt like a really quiet place to be. It's actually on the side of on quite a busy road, but it doesn't feel like that at all when you're there.
I thought the music had a real sense of calm and meditation, maybe a certain grace. I've never been to that particular location, but I imagine that it's pretty amazing to look at.
It does feel like that when you're there, doesn't it? It does feel, I mean, I can't say, yeah, for sure there's like higher energies or, you know, stronger magnetic forces, but I was definitely aware of a very much a sense of calmness on all the sites, actually. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. And also for me, I remember just being inspired by the mystery as well, just thinking, what did this structure used to be here? What did it used to look like? You know, why was it built here? What kind of things happened here? And what was the motivation of the people at the time for what they were doing? No definitive answer to any of those questions, but inspiring to think about.
And the third piece is really intriguing. I don't know, Nick, whether you want to shed some light on that without giving too much away, perhaps?
Again, the title comes from the research about leylines. So the Old Straight Track was a book written in the 1920s by a guy called Alfred Watkins, and he's often credited as being one of the first people to popularize the idea of lay. In fact, he even coined the term lay. He called them lays rather than ley lines. So it's a nod to Alfred Watkins.
So you've been doing this beat making, which is quite different to what you do with Atlas and some of the other projects. I wonder this time round, is it a little bit of a departure for you?
I think it's not a departure. I think being from Bristol, I have a kind of love of dance music and, you know, kind of groovy stuff, which actually found its way a little bit into my album Peaceful King, which Nick and I worked on the title track for that. So it's not departure, but it does feel quite different to any of the other music that I've made up until now. And although having said that, Nick and I have worked together and studied together. So one of the things that I love about Nick's band Paradox Ensemble is all the grooves and all the beats and some of the samples that you've created for that music as well. So I just knew it was going to be really fun to work together on this project.
Nick, as we know, you've used samples and beats before, but this is a different context, isn't it?
Yeah, very different, and it's something that I've been wanting to try out for a while. So it's been great to have the opportunity to basically have kind of electronic elements in a live setting, but also manipulating the electronic stuff in real time, rather than just kind of creating something beforehand, pressing play, and it just happens. So it's been a bit of a learning curve, but very enjoyable as well.
Obviously, the pandemic has hit us all quite hard this year with the constraints and no gigs, no contact, being isolated. It's been particularly challenging, I think, for a lot of people, especially musicians. But most of them have said that there have actually been some positives that they've taken out of it. Rebecca, can you tell me a little bit about your point of view, how you've dealt with this situation, and if indeed there are positives?
I mean, I'd probably agree with that. I'm sure I speak for a lot of musicians that, you know, in saying that I've had to sort of upskill myself massively in so many areas. And actually, perhaps if we were working on this project at the beginning of the lockdown, I would have found it more challenging. But, you know, getting your head around home production, getting your head around, you know, sending music to other musicians to work remotely, and just, you know, kind of finding your feet with that has definitely been a plus side for me that I'll be able to kind of take forward into the future for sure.
Yeah, similar for me as well. It's been a good opportunity to do lots of practice, which has been nice, and yes, to write music and try out new things in new areas where previously might not have had as much time to be able to experiment and try out some new stuff at home.
Will it be developed beyond the Radar Commission?
Yeah, definitely for sure. Yeah. We're already like thinking about next tunes and, you know, how we can release it. And Nick's actually got a record label that he's setting up at the moment, so we're hoping we might release it on that, which is exciting.